In 2001, Action Games received the freshest breath of life they had yet to see with Devil May Cry. Directed by Hideki Kamiya, DMC revolutionized its genre with stylish combos, outrageous cutscenes, and a main character whose picture is printed next to the word badass in the dictionary. After a few sequels, an anime, and a long list of guest appearances, Dante's fourth game was released in 2008. The same year, his creator dropped a titillating trailer at the Tokyo Game Show.
You want to touch me? Come on.
Who was this incredible, mysterious woman flying through the air with guns strapped to her heels? Such destruction juxtaposed by a wildly sexual personality, this was one interesting package being shipped. We've gone from demon slaying to what looks like angel slaying, and there's a total shift in style here, but the same level of hype as Devil May Cry. I'm not the only person that thinks this is amazing, right? So what was the deal? Who was she? Well, the world was about to find out. A year later, in October 2009, Bayonetta was finally released in Japan.
As long as there's music, I'll keep on dancing.
The world finally got to see what all the hype was about. But what exactly made this game great? Why is Bayonetta considered such a special game? If you're on my channel, there's a good chance you watched my last video on why Tomb Raider is iconic. That one was structured around 4 main categories through which I analyzed Tomb Raider's legacy. This one is going to be similar. I've identified 3 categories to break the video into. We're going to talk about gameplay, style, and scale. 3 categories, 3 main segments. Now, I know the first 2 are pretty straightforward, but Gaia, what do you mean by scale? Well, look, without spoiling the plot, this game ups the ante every chance it gets. The sheer scale of events had me screaming at every turn. Massive set pieces for you to work around, boss fights that just get crazier and crazier, and moves from our main character to take down anything in her path. So let's get into it, starting with gameplay. Bayonetta is a spectacle fighter. If you've played games like Nier Automata, Darksiders, or of course Devil May Cry, you'll feel right at home, whipping angels to and fro. The controls are relatively simple. You've got a punch button and a kick button. If you hold down a button, you'll either shoot your guns or do a charge attack, depending on the weapon. The dodge and jump buttons are utilized in combat as well. You string together combos by mixing up punches and kicks either on the ground or in the air. But don't be fooled. This straightforward design leaves no lack for complexity. Bayonetta has a lot of combos, and I mean a lot. The list goes on for miles, and this is just handgun style. As you unlock new weapons, you'll find they have their own movesets. Not only that, but the moves change depending on where you equip them. The claws, for example, are completely different on your legs rather than your hands. You'll definitely want to mix and match until you find something that works for you. Different weapons are best utilized against different enemies. Sometimes even the scenario influences weapon choice, like this fight on top of trucks. The whip is probably your best bet since it helps keep you off the ground and close gaps with enemies. Since you can change your loadout at any time, working out the best weapon for a given situation is no arduous task. You just need to know what you're doing. And since you can have 2 weapon sets in a loadout, switching between weapons mid-combo is highly advisable. Aside from weaponry, Bayo's also got a few tricks up her sleeve for combat application. First off, there's the iconic Witch Time, hated by angels and Smash players alike. If you dodge an attack just before it hits, Witch Time is triggered, where enemies are slowed down and Bayo's attacks become unblockable. Witch Time is absolutely essential in many situations, but once you reach non-stop infinite climax difficulty, the hardest difficulty, Witch Time is disabled, and you're gonna have to figure something else out. Don't ask me, I don't know how the fuck I got through that. Next, there's Wicked Weaves, the giant fists and heels you see Bayo summoning with her hair. Most combos have a Wicked Weave at the end of it, giving a righteous smash to anyone who gets too close. Utilizing these in combat is just as essential as Witch Time, but with so many attacks flying your way, it can be hard to actually reach them before a combo is interrupted. This is where the dodge offset comes in. The dodge offset is a technique where you can preserve your combo through dodging. If you hold an attack button as you go into the dodge, Bayo will scatter bullet casings as she flips away. This means the dodge offset has activated. Releasing the button after you're finished dodging will resume the combo from where you left off, which is especially useful if you stop right before a Wicked Weave. In order to maximize one's potential in fights, a good witch is going to have to make use of all three of these techniques. Get to grips and you'll be sending angels back to heaven in no time. Oh, and don't worry about getting tired of Bayo's moves. Rodine sells lots of new techniques at the Gates of Hell, some of which are far more useful than they might seem. Personally, I don't consider the game fair without air dodging and bat within, but all of these moves have their application, and if you get your combo score high enough, you can make some serious bank. Rodine's shop also sells copies of the weapons you find so you can equip them on both your arms and legs. The shop is super useful. The most important items here are accessories, equipment that gives you new abilities. Simple things like healing when you taunt, but also absolute essentials like the Moon of Mahakala. The item lets you deflect incoming attacks by pushing the analog stick in the direction they're coming from just before they hit. It's a great alternative to dodging when Witch Time isn't an option. You can also pick up useful consumables, but the best part and the most expensive part is the outfits, my favorite part of the game. Give Bayo a new look anytime with the patented Super Mirror. I'll save talking about this for style. Trust that I have opinions. Aside from Bayonetta's abilities and equipment, the game has lots to offer in terms of level design and varying content. The grand majority of levels consist of being on foot, running through cities or ruins or caves, you name it, but they don't shy away from shaking things up. After a battle on a highway, Bayonetta jumps on a motorcycle. Oh, yes, girl.
Time to go boom!
Boom! Instant arcadey driving sequence. There are a few moments like this throughout the game, one of which is on a missile? These sequences, while not my favorite when I'm replaying the game for better trophies, add a lot of variety to an experience that's already fun as hell. Also, after every chapter is a short shooting segment called Angel Attack, where you can earn items or currency. It all comes together in a very arcadey way. Reminds you a lot of just video games in general. The last thing to mention about gameplay is the boss fights. I'll go into detail in the scale segment for obvious reasons, but for now let me say, these boss fights kick ass. First of all, when you see Bayonetta let her hair down like this, run for your fucking life. She's about to go ham. This is Bayo going hard, where every attack summons a Wicked Weave. It's something she only does for boss fights where the stakes are high enough. In the sequel, Bayonetta gets the ability to use this form anywhere, calling it Climax Mode. And yeah, I hear it too. It's meant to be a double meaning. I think it's funny. The boss fights in this game each present a different challenge and a unique scenario. Not exactly gimmicks, but you always have some stages to go through before the boss finally dies. And this is not a complaint. I love this aspect of these fights. It keeps things moving without the fight turning into just a slugfest. And the cutscenes are worth the reward. I mean, remember in the early days where a nice FMV cutscene was your reward for completing segments of the game? I got the same feeling out of almost every cutscene in this game. Bayonetta's personality just rocks, and to talk more about that, let's move on to style. Okay, so this segment exists to talk about a few things, and this is the big segment, so buckle up, buckaroo. First of all, the presentation of the game, its aesthetics. There's a lot to unpack in that department. I'll also be talking about the characters and personalities on display. Every member of the cast is a joy to see on screen, each fulfilling a role of their own. We'll take some time to enjoy the gorgeous outfits on display in this game, both standard and unlockable, then finally cap it all off with a look into the soundtrack of Bayonetta and the work that went into it. It's all a lot of fun, so let's get right to it. And yes, we will be discussing sexuality in Bayonetta in this section. Aesthetically, Bayonetta is a beautiful game. Everywhere you go has some form of eye candy, and I don't just mean Bayonetta herself, not exclusively. First there's Vigrid, a fictional European city with an unnatural closeness to heaven. With beaming sunlight and pristine architecture, the city's Baroque inspirations are on display with every step you take. The name Vigrid comes from the Norse poetic Edda, in which the field of Vigridr is foretold to host a battle between the gods and Surtur, effectively light versus dark, as a lead up to Ragnarok. It's no coincidence then that in Bayonetta, Vigrid is the historical site of the final battle between the Umbra Witches and the Lumen Sages, light versus dark. The next notable location is heaven itself, referred to as Paradiso. Idyllic beyond compare, the locations in Paradiso suggest peace, tranquility, and unending happiness. This place takes very clear inspiration from the popular vision of the Abrahamic heaven that so many of us have been taught. It also serves as a remembrance of time. After Vigrid is destroyed through in-game events, it next appears as a city floating in the clouds of Paradiso, partially in ruins. A very clever way to reuse game assets without repeating content. This realm is juxtaposed by its counterpart, Inferno, but we don't see that place in detail until the sequel, and right now I don't have a capture card for Switch, so I would show you, but I can't, oh well. The last main location of Bayonetta is Isla del Sol, the Island of the Sun. A glorious beaming metropolis, Isla del Sol is a center for religious belief in the game's world, not unlike Vigrid. But visually it seems to take inspiration from the world's megacities, like New York or Tokyo. In much the same vein, the interior of the Ithavoll building, the only place you really go here, draws from elements of 20th century aristocratic design like those seen in places such as Carnegie Hall or the Ritz-Carlton. This mentality of elevated class is, to me, presented in reference to the mindset of the Lumen Sages and their followers. A very holier-than-thou mentality, but here literal. I've always interpreted the sages, in what examples we see of them, as very high and mighty, proudly assuming they have the moral high ground over the witches, but that's just my opinion. But what would the value of these gorgeous locations be without quality characters to populate them? The original Bayonetta features 5 characters for the player to grow familiar with in one way or another, and there's also Enzo. Let's quickly talk about each of them and what makes them special. First, obviously, is Bayonetta herself, the queen of give no fucks. Without a doubt, Bayonetta is the strongest woman alive in her world, matched only by Jeanne. An Umbra Witch, Bayonetta's earliest memory is awaking in a coffin 20 years before the game begins. Since then, she's had to sacrifice angels to her demon mistress every day, lest she be dragged to hell herself. Bayonetta has a pact with Madama Butterfly, a massively powerful demon from Inferno, whose fists and heels we see all throughout the game in the form of wicked weaves. You can also see her in Bayo's shadow, a nice touch if I do say so myself. Bayonetta exudes confidence in every action she takes. This is a woman who knows her place in the world is right at the top. With punches measured in megatons and a hypersexual visual flair, she is empowerment incarnate. Obviously, I cannot speak for women on this topic, but I've seen Bayonetta's overtly sexual nature be praised and appreciated by gamer women worldwide. She's largely agreed upon as a character that does not represent the misogyny that still plagues the games industry and, like, the whole world too. She's nobody's possession, fully confident in her actions and appearances. Touch and it will hurt. We see this especially in her scenes with Luca. Next, Jeanne. Jeanne is a mysterious figure in the first game, a woman who's clearly a witch and more than a match for Bayonetta, both in terms of combat and wit. But her motivations are unclear for a long time. I'm still trying to avoid spoilers because I feel this is a great story, but suffice it to say she's a deep enough character and her appearance in Bayo's fragmented memories only add to the questions she presents. Who is she and why is she doing this? Jeanne is an unrelenting fighter with aggressive taunts and a winner-take-all mentality.
You've already disappointed me.
Her contract is with Madama Styx. You may recognize her voice from many well-known characters, but I think this crazy bitch is the closest example.
That's a sharp outfit, Chan. Careful. You could puncture the hull of an Empire-class Fire Nation battleship, leaving thousands to drown at sea. Because it's so sharp.
Yes, this is Grey Delisle. She does an excellent job exhibiting Jeanne's vicious nature, heard in her line delivery and even her mid-combat grunts. Jeanne is a character who deserves her own spin-off at this point, someone who really should be in Smash already. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Come on, Nintendo, y'all added the whole concept of Echo Fighters and forgot Jeanne? What is that about? It does not make sense. Make it make sense, Nintendo. Here's Luca, the guy who's more relevant in the first game than the second.
Do you believe in fate? Fate brought us here together, and it will never tear us apart.
Luca is a journalist who witnessed both Bayonetta's awakening 20 years ago and his father's unexplainable death. These things happened at the same time, and so Luca very justifiably blames Bayonetta. He enters the game chasing her around, trying to follow her path until he eventually confronts her. But who can hold a lady like Bayo for long? She shakes him off by staying in Purgatorio to fight angels until we see him again later. Luca is a funny guy. He's always got some joke or literal props up his sleeve for a gag. A total flirt with surprising success, it seems the only lady he can't impress is Bayonetta herself. Except Jeanne, who could hardly care less about his existence. I like Luca. He does his best to help out and has this adorable tenderness towards little Cereza. I hope he gets a bigger role in Bayonetta 3. Speaking of Cereza, Cereza is a little girl Bayonetta meets in a ruin outside of Vigrid. She saves Cereza from some angels, who then begins to interpret her as her mother. No matter how much Bayo protests, Cereza never stops calling her mummy. Cereza is all things innocent. Her joy, her fear, her values, her expressive face are all things that help ground Bayo and Luca in increasingly high stakes. She even manages to bring out Bayonetta's soft side on more than one occasion.
When you love something, never lose it. Understand, little one? You must keep it safe, close to your heart.
Where Cereza came from and where she belongs is a consistent question throughout the game. Still trying not to spoil, so you'll have to play to find out. Rodine. I love this guy. Rodine is an essential part of the Bayonetta formula. His calm, cool personality hides a deadly temper, perfectly in theme for a game like this. His bar, the Gates of Hell, is actually a front for an armory where he makes all kinds of weapons for, well, for who knows what, but his specialty is weapons made from demon souls, the only thing strong enough to withstand the magic Bayonetta channels through them.
Built from an alloy the devil himself would kill to get his hands on. Don't break these, because they're one of a kind.
Rodine and Bayonetta seem to be good friends, with flirtatious banter and no hesitation in going right for the jugular.
But let's get one thing straight. Your fights are yours alone. I'm only here to watch my handiwork in action. So don't get any bright ideas about coming to me for help.
No, you get one thing straight. I'm not the slightest bit interested in the fact that you made these guns. If you get in my way, I will... How do the Americans put it. Oh yes, bust a cap in yo ass.
Right on, baby. Right on.
It's clear they have each other's respect. Rodine's origins are alluded to throughout the game, but if you're familiar with the sculptures of Auguste Rodin, well, that tends to be a good hint. Trust me when I say there's more to him than meets the eye.
And hell are gonna go straight for each other's throats.
Oh yeah, and Enzo, I almost forgot. Okay, he's not that bad. He's comic relief, generally giving all of the exposition and being a bit of a punching bag. I don't dislike Enzo, he's not that important. Let's move on. This cast of characters is, at the very least, a memorable bunch. I keep wanting to see more of them in some form of media or another, what I wouldn't give for an anime series like Devil May Cry got. At least there was a movie though, totally worth a watch. Aside from the main characters, there's a considerable cast of enemy angels to smack around as well. Referred to as the Hierarchy of Laguna, the angels are given a page each in a book you can access through the inventory, which also serves as their intros. Keeping to the aesthetics, this is. There are a few more characters, but most of them are either inconsequential or too spoilery to mention. And yeah, I know the game is over 10 years old at this point, but I don't care. Bayonetta is an awesome experience, and the first time you play it can be really memorable, especially if you go in somewhat blind. But anyway, I'm getting too excited to wait any longer, so let's talk about outfits. Yeah, woo, outfits! Okay, remember how this segment is called Style? Yeah, Bayonetta is all about style, and she has the wardrobe to prove it. First, let's talk about her standard battlesuit. A matte black suit made entirely out of her hair, the battlesuit is Bayonetta's signature look, enduring beyond the sequel into the teaser for known cryptid Bayonetta 3. An open chest with a setting for her locket, belt straps on her arms, and gold chains running up her body. This is a sleek and deadly design, giving her that timeless Umbran shred. White gloves with red palms set her flashy earrings into a comfortable cohesion, complemented by the gold rings at the bottom of the black hair coming out of the sleeves, giving her silhouette a unique touch. One that draws allusions to the cloaks of witches and other occult identities throughout history. Her hair done up in almost a beehive, it takes the pointed shape of a witch's hat, with 2 red ribbons coming down for a graceful flourish as she moves. This is a glorious outfit, truly iconic and unmatchable in terms of high camp fashion and over-the-top style. We'd love to see her at the Met Gala next year. This outfit went through many changes during development. Every one of these concepts looked like unique Umbran witches from all different time periods. They could all be their own person. You can also see how they zeroed in on Bayonetta's final look. Bayonetta's glasses and lack of flowing hair were intentional decisions to help her stand out amongst other characters and keep her form visible in gameplay. A big part of playing Bayonetta is enjoying the visual aesthetics of this woman flying around with a deadly grace and style. The game's also got a sizable collection of alternate outfits for the player to unlock, as mentioned before. Head over to the Super Mirror to change your style between chapters. These outfits don't change anything but the visuals. They're purely aesthetic and expensive to boot. But look, that's the price of beauty. I don't make the rules, babe. But once you've got all the weapons and accessories you need, once you can't reasonably power Bayo up any further, then it's time for some What's that? 100,000 Halo price tag is too much? Try Umbran Elegance. For the low price of only 30,000 Halos, you can have Bayonetta's battlesuit morph into a new style depending on the weapons you have equipped. Maybe inhabit the deadly dominatrix with the whip Kusheldra, or how about a very serious military look with the rocket launchers Lieutenant Cole Kilgore. Not too many options with this function, but what there is certainly enjoyable. And the Sci-Fong outfit? This is so fucking beautiful. You don't understand. Look, I have nothing left to say about this, nothing left to cry about. I just fucking love unlockable outfits. Do you know how many times I've 100%ed Tomb Raider Legend just for the unlockable outfits?
お前は今まで食ったパンの枚数を覚えているのか?
It's just fun as hell getting to go back through the game again with a fresh coat of paint. There's nothing like it. Now, you may be confused as to why I said Bayonetta is not a character of misogynist imagination earlier in the segment, when after all these girls' Halloween costume looking outfits, I might sound like a big ol' hypocrite. So we're gonna look at an opinion piece for Gama Sutra by sociologist Catherine Cross, titled Being Sexy and Not Sexist, a look at Bayonetta and objectification. Straight up, This is not my area of expertise, education, or experience. I studied anthropology, which is more like the bookish sister of sociology who goes on secret tomb raiding adventures on the weekends, so take my interpretation of this writing as an amateur's at best. As well, I am not a woman. My opinions on the subject of female sexualization are functionally weightless, so I'll let Dr. Cross's writing do the speaking for me. This excerpt begins in reference to Bayonetta's breakdance move and the camera shutter at the end of it. What clicked for me was that her performance for the camera was not only conscious, but acknowledged and even owned the camera. The answer lies in the nature of objectification, what it is, what it isn't, and how we can represent sexual agency in fiction using externalized cues. Bayonetta's presentation, which is undoubtedly a heavily sexualized one, nevertheless expresses her character in a way that separates her from the crowd of interchangeable, uninteresting portrayals of heterosexual women that clutter gaming. By contrast, Bayonetta's presentation says something about who she is. Food for thought. Some people see fictional characters as slave to the will of their creators. That is, they can only ever represent the desires, worldviews, or perceptions of those who made them. But to project such a belief into a fully functioning world of fiction, such as the world of Bayonetta, is to deny the agency of storytelling altogether. Otherwise, there would never be characters we could relate to or feel inspired by or see ourselves in, only authors, which is fundamentally untrue. From Dr. Cross once more, what makes Bayonetta special is that every inch of her style, from her clothing, her posture, her walk, her signature moves, her weapons, all say something about who she is. Dr. Cross makes special mention of the fact that Bayonetta cannot be interchanged with other female characters. Her actions and contexts specifically require her character, her personality, to work in any meaningful sense. Here, interchangeability is recognized as an aspect of objectification. Bayonetta is at her characteristic best when she does something you do not quite expect, whether it's spanking an angel or standing cross-armed on the wing of a fighter jet. This is where her personal expression weaves together with the setting's over-the-top fantasy and becomes resonantly thematic. Her personality comes through via a sexual expression that weaves into combat, which weaves into kink, which weaves into the story. Confident, icy, quietly smoldering with concern for the few people she cares about. Will not suffer fools gladly. Classy, is proud of her body, unashamed of her sexuality, and wears an impish smile that feels inspired by the infernal realms whose denizens she commands, with her hair. Only Bayonetta can, well, be Bayonetta. Dr. Cross cites the biggest takeaway from her piece as this: do not be afraid of sexual women. Okay, I hope that wasn't painfully unwatchably dense. I have a severe tendency towards exhaustive over-explanation, as proven by the length of my Tomb Raider video. But this opinion piece was the best thing I could find towards explaining why Bayonetta is so positively received in progressive spaces. Now, let's move on. The last and possibly most important piece of Bayonetta's style puzzle is the music. This game's soundtrack, I don't know if there are even genres to accurately describe it. Maybe there are. I don't know music like that. When designing the soundtrack, composer Hiroshi Yamaguchi put a lot of consideration into a sound that would fit a character like Bayonetta. Here's something from a blog post Platinum made to promote this game's release. This is in reference to the TGS 2008 trailer and the first Climax trailer shown before the game came out. These have a few special things going for them. A nice up-tempo beat. To express the idea of femininity, I used beautiful instruments like pianos, electric pianos, organs, vibraphones, flutes, double bass, and a female chorus. It is difficult to establish both the feeling of femininity and get the intensity required of an action game soundtrack right. For me, once I made the track used in the background of the TGS trailer last year, I finally felt like I had found my footing in making these Bayonetta-esque tracks. I love this. The game is really all about the character. Bayonetta is the pull, the appeal, and the reason you're kicking ass. It's only fair that the music should represent her more than anything, and let me tell you, this soundtrack is iconic. It speaks to all parts of Bayonetta. Full orchestras relay the gravity of her history, when she was a young witch caught in a war between clans that she could not control. Then in the present, this brand new style emerges, mirroring her new circumstances. As described by Ms. Yamaguchi, it keeps a high tempo for excitement and uses a variety of gorgeous instruments to parallel Bayonetta's intense beauty. The music does this all throughout the game. with themes and battle anthems that excite the player, ignite the moment, and signal the on-screen character in a way that only music can do. And that's on that.
I feel like a fucking celebrity in this town. See that? Everyone rushes at me like crazed fans. They still haven't figured out that I don't give autographs.
Bayonetta is a game that thrives off of hype. It lives for it. It exists for it. This game has a commitment to intensity, using massive set pieces to create unforgettable action. Take the game's prologue, the very first time you control Bayonetta in gameplay. Standing on the face of a destroyed clock tower as it plummets down a cliff, we have Bayonetta and Jean unleashing hell on the angels around them, jumping from tower piece to tower piece. Or this battle with Jean, where missiles are flung back and forth and eventually rode through the city as the two witches duke it out. Bayo's abilities, as well as the sheer size and power of her enemies, drives her to go to extremes to secure kills. If her opponents dare to raise the stakes, she blasts them into space. Without giving away too much, Bayonetta is always raising the bar for how crazy shit's gonna get next. Your first fight with Jean is a gunfight, jumping around the walls and ceiling of the Umbran clan room. The next one is at the Crescent Valley, hopping around cliff sides as a tempest blows everything to pieces. There's a fight on top of a crashing plane, and then the one I just showed you. And this is just fights with Jean. Boss battles tend to have multiple phases, each more insane than the last. The first boss, a giant double dragon-headed stone face, makes spouts of fire and lava erupt from the ground and chase you around a coliseum while you fight to rip his dragon heads off. Then, once sufficiently damaged, he forces the entire coliseum a mile into the air for a battle in the sky. But that's nothing. There's a boss fight on floating rocks in the middle of a hurricane. There's one out on the open, storming sea, eventually continuing down a whirlpool on a giant web created by Bayonetta's summoned demon spider that... I never talked about the demons. I never talked about the hair! Okay, y'all must be considerably confused as to why her hair is so important, why it makes her clothes and stuff. Here's why. So Bayonetta is contracted to Madama Butterfly, which we know, but she also has a host of Inferno partners whom she summons to finish off her bigger targets. She uses her hair as a catalyst for their bodies, which have trouble existing outside of Inferno. You may have noticed her outfits reducing to minimal coverings while doing these summons, as well as during Wicked Weaves. While she's only got so much hair for summoning, her clothes are made of the stuff. Haha, not weird at all. Just kidding, I actually think that's awesome. There's Gamora, a dragon who pokes his head through the portal for some divine snacking. Malphus, the demon bird with a taste for giant heaven worms. Hecatoncheir, the beast of 6 arms who only ever sends his fists into battle. Phantasmarine, the massive fire spider. And finally, the queen of hell herself, Queen Sheba. I think she's a queen. I know she's a queen, I think she's a queen. Thank you. The demons reappear a few times throughout the game, usually used to finish off the main bosses. The bosses, however, return too. In proper Devil May Cry style, most of them come back for a good old boss rush leading to the final level. Each one is given a new scenario somewhere in either Paradiso or the Ithavoll building, requiring you to use mortar turrets or race up an exploding elevator shaft as you fight them. The game does a good job to present variety while continuing to up the ante, a core theme of the experience. If I had to put it simply, the closest thing I can think of is the idea that there's always a bigger fish. But not like a real fish, more like, shit's always gonna get crazier in this game. Literally don't ever put your guard down, cause everyone, and especially Bayonetta herself, is gonna find a way to surprise with some new way to up the ante and keep the insanity driving higher and higher until the credits are done rolling. Trust me on that. The replayability of Bayonetta is damn near infinite. If you enjoy the combat like so many others, you'll always want to come back for more. And there's lots to come back for. Go for platinum trophies on every normal difficulty chapter to unlock Jeanne as an alternative playable character. She has the same weapons as Bayonetta in her own color scheme, but has to unlock everything from scratch just like when you first started the game. It's also a bit harder to trigger witch time with her, so consider her a type of challenge mode. Every difficulty you beat unlocks a higher one until non-stop infinite climax, where the toughest enemies spawn in just about every fight. Witch time is completely disabled, and enemies are stronger and more relentless than anywhere else. But somehow, I find it easier than hard mode. If you play 100 chapters in total, you unlock a brand new weapon, the Saifeng. This is a Bruce Lee inspired pair of nunchaku, built out of 2 chained together rifles. I unlocked this for the first time while making this video, if you're wondering why I was using it so often. It's incredibly fun, has its own combos, and gives the game a clean breath of fresh air after playing it for so long. There are also a few hidden accessories to unlock through certain challenges that can really shake up your gameplay, but I'll leave those for you to discover. Bayonetta is an absolute treasure of a game. From the extreme high fashion camp of the story and characters to the unmatched gameplay, it's a franchise that deserves all of its praise and more. As soon as I get a capture card, I'll be doing a follow-up video on Bayonetta 2 and how it's a bar none sequel to a game that already raised the bar, but I'll be sure to highlight how this first game in the franchise, in the annals of video game history, is confidently alone in where it stands. The long and short of it is, Bayonetta is truly one of a kind.